Wow, what a game. Fair play to Spurs.
Sort of a little bit bored with teams just going to Manchester City, sitting back, defending, 10 men behind the ball, and then losing 2-0. Suppose we have to talk about the decision in the final. Hello and welcome to The Rest is Football with Alan Shearer, Micah Richards and me, Gary Lineker. We'll be hearing from Alan a little later in the show. He's away at the moment, so can't join us for the full recording, but he was unsurprisingly desperate to make sure he could discuss the mighty Toon and the plight of Manchester United. Micah is here with me now, though. It's Sunday evening and he's hot-footed it straight back from working at the Etihad to join us. Not a bad game, was it, Micah?
Wow, what a game. Good evening, Gary. It was just one of those games where you're thinking at half-time, there's going to be more goals in the second half. I don't know who they're going to go to. I thought Man City probably, Haaland, after his misses, you're thinking he's got to be on the score sheet. But fair play to Spurs for just sticking at it. There's so many times, especially over the last 3 games with Spurs, they've sort of done the right things and not had the sort of results to back it up, but they certainly deserved a draw in that game for their efforts. But the atmosphere was brilliant. The Spurs fans didn't stop singing, and it was just an all-round good Super Sunday.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. With Spurs, I mean, he said before the game, didn't he? I'm just going to play my way. We're going to go for it despite our injuries. Obviously, having lost their 2 central defenders for this one. I mean, it was a big ask for Spurs, and I kind of feared the worst, to be perfectly honest. And during the commentary, and I think a little bit at half-time, there was discussion amongst you guys, and who obviously, terrific pundits. I generally agree with them, but there was an element of, mate, what, does there come a point where they're being a bit naive here, Tottenham, playing this way? But I like his philosophy. I admire it. I think we are in an industry where it's entertainment, and that's what you want. And I'm sort of a little bit bored with teams just going to Manchester City, sitting back, defending, 10 men behind the ball, and then losing 2-0. And I just think it's refreshing to have that approach, even when you've got the amount of injuries that Spurs had. And I think, it makes for really, really entertaining, good football, and that's what we want.
Yeah, I would agree with you. The only time I would probably say they have been naive is against Chelsea, yes, when they had a few injuries and they had a couple of men sent off. I just think you can all play the high line, but there's got to be something connected to that. You play a high line to win the ball high, to create an opportunity. But in that game against Chelsea, it just felt a little bit naive. The reason why I said naive before the game today is because Haaland and his strengths, when he was at Dortmund, what he'd like to do is running behind. He didn't have that many opportunities to do so. But I just thought Spurs as a group, even though they made so many mistakes on the ball trying to play out, I agree with you, Gary, watching them and having a way of playing and an attacking style of play, I think it just really suits them. And like you said, it is enjoyable and entertaining.
Yeah. And, some of the football, obviously Manchester City, we know what they are. They're so good. They had lots of chances. They could have put it to bed. Erling Haaland had a kind of profligate day in front of goal, that's for sure. He missed a couple of sitters, but he keeps getting in there, and that's why he scores the goals. And all strikers will tell you, you've got to score a lot of goals, you have to miss chances as well. It's about getting in there and keep going. It won't affect his confidence in the long run. I suppose he also had 2 assists, although the first one's debatable whether you could call it an assist. But yeah, I mean, it was end to end. It was entertaining, and I actually really, really enjoyed watching it. And I was so pleased for Spurs, obviously as a former Spurs man, that they got that equaliser at the end. You probably less so.
No, like you said, it was a great game of football. I think tactically watching, so when you're at a game and you seeing the way Spurs want to build up, it was always going to be difficult with Emerson Royale playing as a centre-half along with Davis. And I thought Davis did really well on the ball. But if you looked and see the analysis, Man City was actually letting Emerson Royale have the ball. And then as soon as he got the ball, they would pounce at it. And yes, on another day, it could have been 6 or 7 for Man City. But what I liked about Spurs is they kept playing. They kept doing the things that they're good at. He mentioned at halftime they had a little bit of a rollicking, but that's expected. But the belief, when a team, after the results that they had against a Villa, a Chelsea, you're thinking, can we buy into what the manager's really telling us? Is it going to work? But they're stuck at the task. And it paid dividend at the end. That's what I liked the most about Spurs' performance today.
Yeah, I think, will it work? I think it has been working. And it was just a question of whether it would work when you've got the injury list that they've got. Particularly, it's hard, isn't it, when you both your central defenders who've been outstanding this season go missing. But I suppose we have to talk about the decision in the final minute or so. I think the referee had a kind of little bit of a panic because he didn't immediately, give the foul. He sort of went, it was like he let it play on, which was the right thing to do. And then after the ball went and Grealish was about to go through, he blew his whistle. So it's hard to fathom what went through his head, but you could tell by his face that he knew he'd messed up, and we all do that from time to time. But
yeah, we don't like to go too tough on referees. I know we spoke over this season about VAR, and at times it's not been good enough. And if you actually see the incident in slow motion, he does everything right. He puts the whistle to his mouth like he's going to blow, and then he says, nope, play on. And then something, like you said, in his head must have just gone and panicked and blown the whistle. But what I couldn't understand is normally with VAR and the way he can bring things back, he might as well have just let it play out, And if he's made a mistake, you can always go back to it. So that's what I didn't
I wonder,
Mike.
I just think maybe in the split second of thought as the ball went through, that in his head it was he got the shirt colours mixed up, and he thought the defender was going back. He thought it was Grealish rather than the other way around. That's the only I think explanation that kind of possibly makes sense, but only he will know. I just wonder, because you do that in game, you suddenly go, who's attacking? Oh, and then oh no, it's them. It's the wrong one. I don't know. It's a difficult one.
I just think to have that moment in the dying seconds of the game after he'd been outstanding, and yes, we need to give the refs the credit. He'd been outstanding all game. He'd let the game flow, the right decisions, but just at the pivotal moment to give that's all going to be in the headlines tomorrow. So yes, he's made a mistake, but it was just a bad one at the vital moment.
First goal of the season for Jack Grealish, surprisingly, but he's kind of been edged out a little bit of late by Doku, and he's had his injuries, of course, this season. Doku's a handful, that's for sure. But that goal will do Jack a lot of good. His confidence. Brilliant slide at the camera. It was
brilliant. And I want before I go on with my answer, what do you think of Jack Grealish? We know you think he's as a top player guy, but what can he do more? Because people hear a lot from me, and it's always a little bit difficult for me because I'm one of his best friends, so I almost speak from the heart a little bit. But
of course,
put that to the side a minute. What does he need to do, apart from goals and assists, what does he need to do in his game to go to that next level where people stop questioning his 100 million price tag?
Well, you have to forget about the price tag. You're worth what someone's prepared to pay for you. And overall, I mean, he's terrific. I mean, he keeps the ball under certain circumstances. He's the perfect player to have, particularly if you've got a lead, probably going into the last 10, 15 minutes. He can keep the ball. He wins free kicks. He does all that. He makes, I think, a lot of the right decisions. He very rarely gives the ball away. I think possibly the only thing missing in his game that stops it elevating him to the very, very pinnacle is a slight lack of pace. I think sometimes he beats players and then he can't necessarily get away from them. I think he performs brilliantly. I think it's, when he was at Aston Villa, obviously they very much a counter-attacking side, and that suited him. He had a bit more space. But when you've got 10 men behind the ball plus a goalkeeper, and you've got fullbacks and wingers doubling up on you, it's really difficult unless you've got that burst of pace like Doku's got. But Jack's got different strengths, and I think he's an integral part of Manchester City's squad. But I just think it's just that little tiny burst of pace, and obviously that's not something you can change. But his decision making, his crossing, the way he maintains the ball under a lot of pressure. I mean, he wins a lot of free kicks, and people sometimes say, well, all he does is win free kicks, but that's part of your job as a forward. Winning fouls in dangerous situations and getting a lot of free kicks. So, I don't think there's a lot wrong with Jack's game. But there's nothing wrong with Jack's game. I think, like all players, he'll have little bursts of confidence and form. But he's a terrific player. And the thing is that at City, there's a lot of other terrific players as well. And he'll have the same issue with England, of course, because, he'd be up against other players of incredible talent. So, no, I really love watching Jack Grealish play. I love the way he keeps the ball and goes at people. And I'd just say, well, just keep doing the things that you're doing. And, you find a bit of form and a bit of confidence and away you go, I would say.
I would agree. I would agree with that.
Yeah. I saw you actually. I tuned in early today because you had a long stint, didn't you? You had
a lovely long stint.
Yeah. In fact, so long you got a magician in. I saw Dynamo was there. Yeah.
Did you see that Dynamo?
It was incredible. Turned fire into ice. He's amazing, isn't he?
Unbelievable. And he's been going for a while, hasn't he? And the last couple of years, I've not really heard too much from him. And they said, Dynamo wants to do something before Super Sunday. And I was like, wow, what's he going to do? And they said he's going to turn fire into ice. And I'm just like, I'm a skeptic, I mean, come on. I'm like, how is he possibly going to do that? And there's so many cameras and I'm looking underneath his hands and seeing what he's wearing and all that. And then Jamie Carragher's got a bit of a light. He puts like a piece of paper on the light, asked me to put my hands out, and then he turns into a big block of ice. I was like, it was incredible. Wow, I couldn't believe it.
He is incredible. I had dinner with him. Oh, it must have been about 8-9 years ago with a few friends. My friend Jonathan Downey, Giles Corrin, and Richard Bacon. I think it was a night out, and he joined us. Oh, what a night of entertainment! He did trick after trick. He had his cards on him, and it's just mesmerising, isn't it? What a talent! What a skill!
What a skill that is!
Yeah.
But do you believe in it though, or do you just think it's a bit? I mean, it's an illusion, isn't it?
Well,
it's an illusion.
Yes, Micah.
Of course,
I don't think it's actually really magic.
How does he?
Well, exactly. How? I mean, how?
How?
Oh, I don't know. I wonder if you'd be a footballer and do, suddenly move the ball from one end of the pitch to the other, that sort of thing. Right then, before we get on to the rest of the weekend's action, I did have a quick catch-up with Alan earlier today while Micah was busy working to discuss the Newcastle versus Manchester United match. You won't be surprised to hear that he was in pretty good spirits about it all. Here is our roving reporter, Alan. Special weekend, isn't it?
What a weekend it's been, Gaz. It's been amazing, hasn't it? Well, I'm presuming you're talking about Newcastle.
I was actually talking about your daughter's birthday little trip.
Yeah, I just popped away to come and see my daughter for her birthday. For a minute I thought the football was more important than I was that excited.
You're getting the doghouse there. Just be careful, Alan.
I will, yeah. No, away for my daughter's birthday, so just away for a couple of days and then back in on Tuesday. So yeah, all good.
Well, let's start with Newcastle, Alan, because it was a terrific performance. For us neutrals, but you were, I must say, very excited in the office yesterday.
I was slightly concerned again with all the injuries that Newcastle had, and I think, can they go out and perform again after being magnificent and robbed like they were in Paris, to come back from that huge disappointment? I was thinking, can they step up again? But I mean, the energy and the attitude and everything else that they showed from the very first minute, they put Manchester United under huge pressure. They went after them, and Man United just couldn't handle it. And I really thought from the very first minute to the last minute that they were the better team. They were the one that were on the front foot. They were the one that were looking to win. They were the ones that were winning every single second ball, every single tackle. And I thought they were just, to a man, I thought they were absolutely magnificent.
I totally concur with that, Alan. And as you pointed out in your analysis last night, for those that perhaps didn't see it, that you focused on the two wide areas and where Newcastle were incredibly strong, particularly with the two fullbacks, I think, with Livramento and, of course, Trippier. But you also highlighted the lack of, well, you could even say effort in trying to get back from the two wide players for Manchester United, Garnacho and Rashford.
Yeah, I thought that was a huge problem for Manchester United. I mean, time and time again, both fullbacks for Manchester United were isolated. They were left 2v1 so many times because of the reluctance, because of the lack of effort from Garnacho, from Rashford, from others in the midfield who didn't really want to run around. And Newcastle battered them in those positions. I mean, how many times did they get to the touchline and try and cross balls or pull balls back and 2v1 in that situation? And that was a huge problem area for Manchester United.
Yeah, Tino Livramento is a young player. He was very impressive on the occasion. Saw him at Southampton. Then he got quite bad injury, didn't he?
Yeah.
But he looked...
Cruciate.
Yeah, cruciate, exactly. That's something you know all about. He's he looks a very, very talented young player, incredibly quick, powerful, great engine up and down the line there, Alan. I think he is. He's one of those players that is... he's 21, isn't he? And he's available to play for England, for Scotland, I believe, and Portugal as well, isn't it? I think he's one of those players.
I read that, yeah.
So I think Gareth Southgate needs to get on the phone to him. I know there's no games he can play him for a little while, but you wouldn't you? I mean, he plays on both sides as well. I mean, I know right back we've very well, we've got lots of really great right backs, and Luke Shaw's obviously a very good left back, but definitely a player for the future.
Yeah, I mean, he's played for England at almost every level up to now, and he's, 15, 16, 17s, 18s, 19s, 21s, whatever. So I would really hope that someone has already, and if they haven't, then they should rather quickly get on the phone to him and tell him that he's got a big future in the England squad, whether that's at right back or whether that's at left back, because I'm sure Newcastle bought him. I mean, they spent, about 30 million quid it was from him. And he did have a serious injury, but there's always been that thing around him where he's got huge potential and he's a very good player. But I didn't realise how good a player he was until I actually saw him at Newcastle in the Newcastle shirt. And when you consider some of the big games that he's played in already this season, whether that's been at right back or whether it was like it was yesterday at left back, he's been absolutely sensational. And yeah, absolutely that he needs to have a call from someone to say, you're going to be a big part of our squad going forward in the future.
Got another player in midfield who's 4 years younger than Tino Livramento.
Yeah.
Well, what a performance from him as well, Lewis. Man, he looks so confident, so comfortable. Yeah. Just his pressing. I was incredibly impressed with his stamina throughout the game, and he kept going, didn't he? What a performance! 17-year-old. I mean, the last 7 days for him, he's had Chelsea, Paris Saint-Germain in the Champions League, and then up against Manchester United yesterday at St James's Park. I mean, he must think he's in dreamland, and I mean, he just looks natural.
naturally looked very comfortable. He didn't. I mean, other than looking at his baby looks, if you didn't know who he was or what he was, you'd think he'd been around for years. The way he was strutting around the pitch and closing down, and the balance he had on the ball. So I thought it was another huge performance from him. And again, the future looks great for him. So only good news for the academy and for Newcastle.
He must be thinking this men's football's quite easy. Should have won all three of those games as well. Obviously, if they hadn't got that more than dubious decision in Paris. I
mean, when you look at, as I said, he was up against Bruno Fernandes in that midfield yesterday, and I mean, he looked natural. He looked really comfortable. Looked happy. Worked his socks off like you have to do in Eddie Howe's teams.
I want to talk about Eddie Howe, Alan, because I mean, a remarkable job he's done, particularly when you take into account the injuries that Newcastle have got at present. I know they've still got a good 11 out, but you know the bench was a lot of youngsters, wasn't it? Now Nick Pope's gone and done his shoulder, which that's a serious concern because you know a dislocated shoulder for any player is not great, but for a goalkeeper, and he's done it before, hasn't he? Yeah. Eddie pointed out after the game, but what a job he's done, and he's doing.
Phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. When you look at the money that's been spent, and I know that other clubs will turn around and say, "Oh, hang on a minute, all the money you've spent." But when you compare it to, I don't know, the other big six, if you like, who want to be up there and want to stay there and have spent gazillions for a number of years now, and Newcastle have done it in a different way. Yep. But I think what he's done is and improved every single player at the football club, whether that's a new player coming in or whether that's a player that has already been there. And
well, look at Joel Linton and Almiron. I mean, in particular, those two have massively improved, and you know, one or two of the defenders at the back as well with Shah and Lascelles. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
And he looks as if he's got a brilliant team spirit there. You know, it's like it is as if they're all together. They're all united, and I just think he's pulled everyone to the whole football club was in bits, as we know. So for him to pull the whole football club, including the fans, and they're now all together and going in the same direction, and he's got a big squad of players that just want to work hard, and you can tell they're enjoying playing for him and for Newcastle, and that's all the fans can ask for.
Yeah, Newcastle United look very united. Manchester United look absolutely opposite, don't they? I mean, they're a bit all over the place at the moment, Alan.
I said, didn't I, a couple of weeks ago, I didn't know what to expect because at the minute I think it's a basket case of a football club. I mean, with the ownership, who's going to take over, how much they're going to take over, when it's going to happen. I mean, it's just a mess. And we did say that what happens at the top will eventually filter down. And I know prior to yesterday that they'd had a decent run in the league, not so much in the Champions League, but we also did say that they hadn't really played any one of the top teams. And I mean, I thought they were a mess yesterday. I thought they were terrible. I thought their attitude was awful, and I thought it highlighted some of the really bad attitudes that they clearly have, because it's all right. You know, when things are going well for you and you can get your foot on the ball and play around and everything else and you're scoring goals, but when it's tough and when it's hard, you see the players who want to fight for you. You see the players who want to support you as a manager and as a fan. And I thought there was 3 or 4 yesterday that were not prepared to roll their sleeves up and gave up far too easily and didn't want to fight.
Where does the main problem lie? Is it the manager because he can't get the best out of the players? Is it the players because they've lost their way? Is it because of the top of the club is in a bit of a pickle? Will that change? And how do they? I mean, obviously they've got new people we think coming in to a degree, but it's hard to see really a kind of a massive improvement in the near future, isn't it?
No, I don't see it happening anytime soon. I think it's a long-term job. It's been a long-term job already. They haven't been where they want to be for a number of years now, and eventually what happens, as we said, comes down onto the pitch, and that's been there for a while. I mean, the money that they've spent, some of the players that they've spent money on, I know Anthony and Sancho, and I mean, when you look at Rashford's performance yesterday, it looked as if he didn't want to be there at all. When he got dragged off, you could see his reaction. Garnacho was really struggling. I know he scored a wonder goal last week, but you spent 60 or 70 on Sancho, you spent 80 on Anthony, and they can't get in the team for whatever reason. I mean, that sort of sums it up at Manchester United for me.
I think it's going to be a tough season for them. No question about that. And it'd be interesting to see what if they do come in, and they're talking about Ratcliffe and they're looking at Brailsford as well taking over. But there's no guarantee that they know any better about. They're not football people. But something needs to be done, and it doesn't look like there's any quick fix. But yeah, the club's in a mess. And you also they've gone through a number of managers in recent times, and normally when people are above you, they need someone to blame, and it's often the manager that gets the heave ho. It's a tough one.
Normally when new ownership comes in, a lot of the time that means a new manager. Whether that's after a week or 3 or 4 weeks, it normally means a change is there.
You can't keep doing that, can you?
Well, they have.
Well, true.
They have, and look where they are now. So whether they'll do that again remains to be seen. But clearly, you don't have to be a genius to work it out. Clearly, there's an issue in that dressing room. You can see that. You can see when the arms go up when it's not my fault, or players try to send a reaction to their own fans to say this is not my fault. And as soon as that happens, you just know there's an issue in the dressing room, and that happened too many times yesterday.
Yeah. Before I let you go to celebrate your daughter's birthday, England draw, Scotland as well were in the draw for the European Championship yesterday. And well, you did a little bit actually. You were in the studio there for a while, weren't you? So a really good draw, I think, for England in terms of getting through, and an exciting draw for Scotland.
Yeah, I think it was a really positive draw for England. I think they'll be without doubt one of, if not the favourites for the tournament. Them and France. And I think it's now or never for England, isn't it? I think with a success that, I don't know, I say that in a cautious way, success. But what he's done, Gareth, from where England were to where he's got them, I mean, semi-finals and finals, etc. So I think now's their time with the players they have. They've got some world-class players now. And I've said it before, from midfield going forwards, front six, I think we've got the best in world football. So when you've got that, you've got to go out and perform and win. And I think this should be England's time now next summer.
Yeah, I think if you keep knocking on the door, you just hope eventually it will open. And I mean, they are hard to win, big tournaments. We know that. There's a lot of other, terrific sides in there, but it's nice that to be in a position where England are so competitive. I just want to finish with just. Did you catch the draw for the which just took place earlier? Sunderland versus Newcastle. It's been a while since one of those.
I've already sent a text message off asking for tickets. Oh, what a draw. It was brilliant, wasn't it? Arsenal, Liverpool and Sunderland, Newcastle. Whoa, amazing. Yeah, can't wait. Something to look forward to.
We'll be doing one of those games. I'm not quite sure which one yet, because obviously we kind of alternate with picks on ITV.
I've already been on to the top guys, Gary.
I thought you would.
We can't. I mean, we know Arsenal and Liverpool are going to play reserve sides. We might as well do the Sunderland, Newcastle, we know that no one can afford to be beaten. So. And won't put reserve sides out.
No, I've told them we should do Arsenal Liverpool because it's very cold up north.
Oh, off. We don't want that.
No, I haven't. Oh, don't worry. Don't worry. Right. Thanks for joining us, albeit briefly, and have a great day, and say very happy birthday from us to Holly.
Will do. Thanks, guys. Cheers.
Time for us to take a quick break. When we come back, I'll be with Micah again, looking at all the other key talking points from the weekend. Welcome back to the Rest is Football with me, Gary Lineker, and Micah Richards. We've heard from Alan, and he's now celebrating his daughter's birthday. We'll be celebrating some terrific football today. Lots of goals scored, including late drama at Anfield, wasn't there? 2 late goals to beat Fulham. I don't know whether you caught that match, even though you were working, but it's one of those days. It's like frustrating, isn't it, when you on the days when there's 5 games and you can only watch 2 of them. But I have subsequently seen the highlights. Liverpool's 4 goals.
Oh,
goodness me! I mean,
God. Should we go through them by order?
Yeah. And how has Trent not been given that free kick? It's been given as an own goal on Leno.
Ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. We keep talking about Trent and his technique, but he's in a great vein of form at this moment in time. The goal, the purchase to get it up and down and whip and bend. He's one of the best technicians I've ever seen in the Premier League. Wow, what a player he is.
He's a wonderful footballer. I mean, I've been a fan of his for many years. Everyone knows that, and I was. Right, in fact, from the first few times I saw him, I used to think, God, he's got to be a midfield player. I mean, I think he was a midfield player as a youngster. And it was one of those situations where they see a talent and they think, we'll get him in the team, but you can't get him in his position. He ends up going to right back, and he was so good for so long that he became a right back. And, it irritates me a little bit when people say, yeah, but he's not very good at defend, and every slight error, any goal that goes in on that side of the pitch against Liverpool, that people have a pop at him. But I think the positives of his forward play, his passing, I think he's certainly the best passer of the ball in the English game at the moment, and in probably much bigger area than that, maybe even Europe. Or his range of passing outside the foot, inside the foot, long passes, short passes, his crossing, of course. But I'm loving him in this new role where he drifts into midfield. Obviously, Gareth Southgate's tried him in midfield as well, and I think that that could work for England. The position alongside Rice, because Gareth does like to play 2 back there. You could play Bellingham in front of them. And I know Gareth's a little bit more, he prefers the more defensive midfield players in those spots, but that passing range of his, it could be hugely beneficial at some point to England.
Agreed. And I've got to give you credit because you mentioned this. It must have been 2 years ago now with Trent. He should be playing in midfield.
Longer.
Might even be longer.
I did a tweet about 5 or 6 years ago, and I think I'll be proved wrong, but I said, this young man will, I think when he first broke into the England team way back, I think I said something like, this young man will get 100 caps for England in midfield. And it's sort of happening a little bit late. And I don't think I'm going to be right. But you never know, because his talent is beautiful. What a player to watch.
Second to none. We've had so many good right backs, Kyle Walker, Reece James over the years, but Trent and his ability for going forward, I've not seen anything like that in the Premier League from a right back. In terms of, just like you said, the passing, the timing of his arriving in areas though as well. It's not just he's got a good right foot. It's the spaces and the positions he picks up on the pitch. He's so intelligent to be able to make them crosses or score them goals. He's just truly wonderful talent, really.
2 massively important goals he scored. I know he's not been given the first one, which we could argue about that, but he scored the winner again today, late on. Terrific strike, very similar to the goal probably against Manchester City, which was also important. But probably goal of the day was McAllister.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
Wow. You know what? Because it was bouncing, and you're thinking, you as a striker, you know when to hit it to get the best possible chance of hitting the target. And he just waited waited for the right connection, and then he hit it with some venom. What a goal that was. wow, McAllister. And that's what we want to see in McAllister. We've been yearning for that. I know he's been playing a little bit deeper. I wanted to see the McAllister of Brighton where he's getting on the half turn, making the cute little passes and scoring them goals. But that today certainly was an unbelievable strike. What a goal that was.
And the third one wasn't bad either. Endo.
Ooh, Endo! And he just come on the pitch, hadn't he? He just come on the pitch, Endo. And he's known for his defensive capabilities, but to come on and score a goal and just whip it. There was some brilliant goals down.
You have to feel a bit for
today.
Fulham, though, 3-2 up with just a few minutes to go. And
it was weird because we was in the studio and Jamie Carragher's going down to do co-coms. And when he left, it was 3-2 to Fulham. And by the time he got down,
was he down in the dumps?
So he was spitting feathers. He was spitting feathers. As soon as he got down, it was like, don't worry, Jamie, Liverpool are winning now. And his whole aura was just like, oh, that's good. It was amazing, honestly.
Huge win for Burnley. Comfortable victory, finally, for your man Vincent. I interviewed him after the game. He was clearly in good spirits. Although I must admit, I admire the way that he's kept his chin up right throughout the season. He kept saying, "Yep, no, we're adapting, we're learning, we're getting better. The results will come." I know Sheffield United were poor yesterday, really poor, but that's a massive confidence booster for them, isn't it? Gives them some kind of hope.
I like the question you asked him about dealing with being at the top in the Championship and then how you deal with being sort of at the bottom in the Premier League.
Well, it was more the question of as a player, he was always, challenging for titles, this, that and the other. He's not used to, even with Burnley last season when he started there, he's always at the top. And how was life like how was it dealing with life at the bottom? And he was good on it, wasn't he? He was honest.
He was excellent, and that's why I want him to do so well, not just because he's an ex-teammate, it's just because he's so measured within his answers. And he always used to say to me, block all the nonsense out. People are going to give you credit. He said, just don't be too high when people give you credit. He used to say, because when he first come to Man City, and I was like, not the big star, but the big hope. And he always used to say to me, keep your feet on the ground, because as soon as you start believing,
and you totally ignored him.
I was like, behave yourself, Vinny. He said, as soon as you start believing your own hype or getting above your station, that's when things become very difficult. You're going to go through a time where things are not going to go as well as you think. And it's just having that measured approach all along. And he's taken that as a player and he's taken it onto his Burnley team. He said, we're going to stick to the same characteristic that we know. He mentioned about having new players and letting them settle in. But I think what we was talking about, me, you, yourself, and Alan, is they were still making the same mistakes. There's nothing wrong with trying to play a certain way, but at some point you have to tweak certain bits and pieces. And Burnley, what we've seen this season, have been pretty naive on some of them things, but it was nice to see them, all their hard work and all their combinations come together, because that's what Burnley are. They're going to concede a lot, but they should be scoring a lot more goals too.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Your next door neighbour had a rough day, didn't he? Ollie McBurney, 2 miles down the road next door. 2 yellow cards, a red card, second time this season. Have you? Is it your influence on him? Or?
I can assure you, Sheffield United fans, I have no influence on what happened with McBurney, but he probably should have been off for the first one, shouldn't he? I mean, the second one was crystal clear.
The first one he got a little bit lucky.
He got a little bit lucky, but I was gutted for him again, because he's, like we said before, he's a neighbour. But yeah, it was a right decision in the end. But I can assure you, had nothing to do with Big Meeks.
Nothing at all. We're in December now. We've still not had a manager lose his job. I think at this stage last season, about half of them had lost the job almost. I think there was something like 14 or 15 managers lost their job at some stage last season. Why do you think it is that there's been a bit more patience? Is it perhaps that there's not great alternatives around? I don't know.
Yes, I think it is that. Not many great... Well, there is always alternatives, but like you said, not many great alternatives. And it's not only the fact of... So, a team that's lost, 7 at home, like Burnley did, I believe.
Yeah.
You're thinking, we need to sort this out here. We need to give the new managers some time. But what a lot of people don't understand is when you're changing a manager, you have to then change everything that's going on within the club. And if players are used to doing something one way, to then completely change that to be a pragmatic team, it's going to take probably more time. So I would think clubs are now thinking, no, actually, let's stay. It was the same with Areola at Bournemouth. People were saying, I can't really see what's going on here. But if you give the managers time, it gives them more of a chance, I would say.
I said at the end of last season that it seemed to me, particularly, well, it's obvious that's where most managers will lose the job if they're in the bottom half of the table. But pretty much every club that sacked the manager didn't really do much better. And the teams that actually were stuck by theirs, and one was obviously Gary Neal at Bournemouth, and there were Sean Dyche at Everton after a while, but they did change managers. But though I think the teams that stayed up were ones that actually stuck with them, whereas Leicester, Brendan Rodgers, I think Brendan had done enough at the club to at least deserve the right to try and keep them up. And then the other two were relegated as well. Both changed their managers, and I think perhaps the owners were looking at that and thinking, well, maybe we can learn a lesson that. And there's always that thing, and the grass is greener on the other side. You think you're going to get somebody a little bit better, but you've got to change the way you play. You've got to reintroduce someone, and sometimes there's a little bounce. But I think statistically, if you look at it, that's a little bit of a myth. Doesn't necessarily happen overall. So yeah, I think obviously you're not going to go through the whole season without anyone losing their job. I think that would be remarkable, but I think it's quite good. I think it's a positive that, take Fulham. Marco Silva obviously did a great job last season, but I remember actually on when he lost his job at Watford, and Watford at that time were firing them left, right and centre. And, he came in, they had a first bad spell and he was out. And I remember a lot of Watford fans, and I said, I think it's a ridiculous decision. I think he's a really good manager. He's got something. And I got hammered on Twitter by the Watford fans saying, no, he said this, that and the other. But may I say to you, Watford fan, well, have a little look now. They lost in the last minute today, and I've probably the kiss of death now. I've said that to him for the rest of the season. But that's Twitter for you.
You know what I think, though? I think what's helped as well, other teams or sort of management and owners making that decision, is Everton being docked 10 points, So if the other clubs would have lost a few games and Everton being docked a few points, but I just believe because that happened, it's give the other teams more of a chance. If Everton weren't docked them 10 points, it would have been a bigger gap that they would have had to climb as well.
Of course it would. Big win for Everton, though, yesterday. I want to give a little shout out to my team, Leicester. Great win yesterday away at West Bromwich Albion. I know, Al mentions his team every week. You're always mentioning Manchester City, little old Leicester in the Championship. Yes, I think West Brom equalised in like 88th, 89th minute or something. And I thought, that would have been another draw. They did end the week and they'd lost a couple. And then Harry Winks scored in the 95th minute winner. It was beautiful and they were celebrating. And it's been a good weekend for my former clubs because Spurs got that great point. Everton won. As we're doing this, actually, Barcelona won up against Atletico Madrid. I don't know whether that's still the case. And while we're talking about Barcelona, I saw something quite amusing this week where someone had found the requests for the players. I don't know whether you saw this, for their post-match meal in the restaurant that they were going. I mean, I don't know about your post-match diet at football, but this is quite funny. It's going back a few years. Ter Stegen, sushi and Nutella sandwich. PK, a Nutella sandwich and fruit. Rakitic, sushi, 2 helpings and fruit, a bit healthier. Busquets, a ham pizza and fruit. Only pineapple and strawberry. Xavi, chopped chicken breast and ham pizza. Iniesta, ham and cheese pizza and a sandwich of bologna and chorizo. Suarez, ham and cheese pizza and Caesar salad. Messi, a cheese pizza, keeps it simple. Neymar, ham and cheese pizza and fruit. Mascherano, pasta salad and 2 pieces of fruit. And this is my favourite, Sergi Roberto, sushi and triple sandwich with Nutella. What is it with these players and Nutella?
Nutella?
I quite like Nutella. I mean, it's quite tasty. I like a bit of chocolate, but I thought that was quite amusing.
I've not had Nutella for about 10 years.
Have you not?
No,
I'm
not a chocolate man. I'm more of a meat eater. Yeah,
crisps.
Meat eater.
I'm more of a crisp man.
Crisp Walkers.
Might have mentioned. Yeah, exactly. Right. Moments of the week. You've been busy, but I think FA Cup second round action we've seen. Bhivesh Gurung scored a brilliant winner for National League South side Maidstone United as they beat League 2 high flyers Barrow 2-1. And Maidstone folded actually in 1992 after long-standing financial issues, and it will be their first time in the FA Cup third round since then, and looking forward to seeing them at home against Stevenage or Port Vale in the third round. Well, they'll have a slight chance of getting through to the fourth round. Some good draws. I don't know whether you know.
I've seen the draws.
A couple of biggies. Alan was very excited about Sunderland and Newcastle, and then you've got Arsenal, Liverpool as well.
Which one do you want, Gary?
Well, Arsenal's a lot closer to home, but I think Alan was straight on to the powers that be at the BBC because we get first pick, and I think then ITV get second and third, and we get fourth pick. So I think Alan was straight on the phone. Right, we've got to do that. We're bored of Arsenal. It's always Arsenal, Liverpool, but this is the big one. So I don't know what the decision is. They'll probably make it in the morning, I would imagine. And also the picks for the European Championship will be made, I think, tomorrow as well. So that's quite interesting how it works. Because to make it fair, because obviously we have a 50-50 split with ITV, and the only game we both show is the final. But before that, one channel gets first pick, and then you take alternate picks right the way through to the end. So, for example, ITV have got first pick this time. It's kind of alternates between tournaments. So I don't know what they'll go, but I suspect they'll probably go first choice of a semi-final or first choice of a quarter-final. And they'll be hoping that England go through that far. I think we'll probably pick the one that isn't either of those. I don't know. I've not had this conversation with anyone. And then it goes right through. So it's, first quarter-final, second semi-final, third quarter-final. Then you go to the group games where obviously both channels will want England and Scotland games. And so it goes right the way through, and then they come up with this. It's quite an amicable process, but yeah. So we'll see what games we get in the Euros, and we'll also find out which FA Cup ties we're at. Which one do you want, Micah?
Oh, two.
Well, it's closer to you, isn't it?
We've got to take the 2. Sunderland 2. We've got to take them.
It's a biggie.
It'd be nice.
Yeah,
Early doors.
I've never been to a Sunderland Newcastle game, I don't think.
Ooh, neither have I, actually. No. We've got to. Well, I'm talking like I'm definitely getting the call up, but we've got to have that.
You're first teamer now, Micah. You're first teamer. And right, you'll be on ITV anyway. So
I've got a chance. Okay, as long as we've got a chance.
You've got a great chance. Well, you've worked hard today. You deserve a rest.
Thank you, sir.
But we will be back later in the week answering your questions. Don't forget that if you want to get a question into us, you can do so on social media, just to the @RestIsFootball, or you can email us at therestisfootball@gmail.com. Thanks for all your questions, and thanks for your continued support of the podcast. We thoroughly appreciate it. We'll see you soon. Goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me.